So while the labor movement suffered some setbacks, right, during the early Cold War, you're going to see the civil rights movement, in particular, the African American civil rights movement, have some major victories during the early part of the Cold War. So, for one, President Truman is going to desegregate the military through executive order. Okay, he's going to take the power into his own hands and choose to desegregate the military. Remember, he's commander in chief, right? In addition, you have a number of different states creating fair employment practices commissions, which sought to end discrimination in hiring practices, right? So you're going to have a number of states who have a fair employment practices commission, and that's big because remember, the Fair Employment Practice Commission was originally created to stop hiring discrimination within the war industries, right, during World War II. But now these state level fair employment practices commissions are focusing on discrimination in all industries, not just the war industry. Okay, so that's huge because that allows workers the chance to get hired in more jobs, right? Because the companies are not supposed to be discriminating against them, right? For whatever reason, or because of race. After World War II, membership is actually going to increase quite a bit in the NAACP, right? And that's going to strengthen their voter registration campaign in the South, which actually was pretty successful in increasing the African-American vote in the South, right? Increased it by 20%. So these are all victories for the African-American civil rights movement, okay? Now, although President Truman supported civil rights and social equality legislation to a point, he wasn't really an all-out left-wing liberal, right? He was trying to move, though, in the same direction as FDR had been with the New Deal. But when he started supporting desegregation, not just in the military, but just desegregation, period, Southern Democrats pulled their support from him, and they left the Democratic Party and formed the States' Rights Democratic Party, which chose Strom Thurmond, who was a strong supporter of segregation, as their candidate for president in the election of 1948. Now, although the Democratic Party had split, Truman was still able to win the election of 1948, and he got his second term. But this split is significant, right? Yes, it's true that some members of the States' Rights Democratic Party eventually went back to the original Democratic Party, but still, the split was significant because eventually you're going to start to see former Southern Democrats switch to the Republican Party, okay? And this is where you see the beginning of the transformation of the Republican and Democratic parties into what they are today. So remember, President Lincoln, he was a Republican, right? Republicans were involved in Reconstruction, right? The radical Republicans, right? They're trying to change the social circumstances in the South, right? The social hierarchy, trying to make things more equal, right? So that was the Republican Party. But everything flips, right? And so eventually you're going to have Democrats like FDR and President Truman who start to support civil rights and economic programs that would improve the economic and political standing of minority groups, and like such as African Americans. And when that happens, you start to see Southern Democrats eventually, differ with them, and then eventually leave the Democratic Party and move over to the Republican Party. Okay, so now you have the Republican Party today much more conservative than it had been in the past. And then you have the Democratic Party a little more liberal and with the ideology of the government stepping in to support the people, right? To give aid to citizens, to make sure that there's no inequalities in society, right? Or attempting, that's the goal, right? To try to get rid of inequalities in society and discrimination. So this is where you start to see the formation of the political parties as they are today. It doesn't happen immediately. It's a very slow, gradual process. We'll talk more later on about the development of the Republican Party and its ideology.